Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mok-yeon. The Korean Peninsula stands at a pivotal crossroads as the re-elected Trump administration marked its first 100 days in office. Now, during this period, geopolitical tensions have escalated, with North Korea officially confirming its military involvement in the Ukraine war and strengthening its alliance with Russia. Behind closed doors, efforts to reinitiate U.S. North Korea dialogue are reportedly underway as Washington engages allies and intermediaries to prepare for possible talks. Now, in the background, China's restrained influence over Pyongyang, concerns about North Korea's nuclear advancements, and questions surrounding U.S. forces Korea's strategic role all point to a rapidly evolving security environment. So for a deeper discussion on these issues, we invite Kim Mok-yeon, Senior Research Fellow at the Institute for National Security Strategy, here in the studio with us. Welcome.
It's good to be here.
And also joining us from Washington, D.C. is Ambassador Joseph Detrani, former Special Envoy of the U.S. for the six-party talks. Great to have you with us.
Thank you.
So let's start with Dr. Go. So yesterday marked the 100th day in office, Trump administration, of course. Now, could you evaluate for us how has the security situation on the Korean Peninsula developed over this period, and how would you assess the Trump administration's foreign and security policies?
So I think that for the first time in a long while that the focus of the U.S. administration has shifted away from the Korean Peninsula to elsewhere in the world. We can talk about Canada, the tariff default that's going on between the U.S. and China, of course, what's going on in Ukraine. But I think the spotlight has shifted away from the Korean Peninsula, and in a way, that's for the better. And then that means that the North Korea has been behaving relatively well, meaning that they're not taking any action and in terms of provocations, especially in the last 100 days. And I think it has been more or less a calm situation for the both Koreas. Of course, there are political turmoil going on in South Korea, but we are not seeing a sign of instability or a rash action carried out by the North Koreans. So, but then that's not all good news. I think it's also it's an evidence that North Korea is not a top priority for the Trump administration. Clearly, there are a lot of things that's going on in the world right now that distracts the White House, and but nonetheless, the presidential term is only for 4 years, and if there's going to be a dialogue between the North Korea and the United States, and we call it consultation with the allies such as Korea and Japan, it's going to be a very complicated process. We are talking about the denuclearization of North Korea, so the sooner we start, the better. So in that sense, I think it's a mixed bag overall.
Now, speaking of dialogue with North Korea, Trump has, from actually the first stages of his administration, he's been saying he wants to resume dialogue with North Korea, but it seems to be having no progress as of the moment. What are the major variables do you think that are kind of affecting or hindering the resumption of dialogue?
I think there's one single variable here, or in fact, what's going to be on the agenda if there's going to be dialogue between Washington and Pyongyang. So for decades, the most important agenda between North Korea and the rest of the world has been North Korea's denuclearization, how to implement denuclearization, with the ways to ensure that the denuclearization process is sustainable, and also to reassure North Koreans that their nuclear disarmament is not going to lead to conflict against the regime. So that's been that's been the agenda. I mean, the whole issue, the implementation of the issue carrying out denuclearization has been complicated. But then the agenda item was very simple, it was denuclearization. But I think for the first time in decades, it's likely we are going to see a different or completely different discussion item on the discussion agenda between Washington and Pyongyang, and it might be how to somehow accommodate those Koreans' wishes to be recognized as a nuclear state. So, but then the idea here is that we're not going to abandon nuclearization, but at the same time, how can we attract North Korea back to the negotiation table when North Korea is essentially rejecting all the offers or entreaties from the international community to bring North Korea back to the negotiation table, which is going to be about, again, denuclearization. And I think this is the reason why, I mean, to think positively about the remarks that President Trump as well as Secretary Rubio had made about North Korea's nuclear status. They mentioned, described North Korea as a nuclear power, and that's a major no-no, has been a diplomatic no-go zone, because it really disturbs the allies a great deal, because it seems like the United States are abandoning the goal of North Korea's nuclearization. But I think in a way it was a necessary step to somehow attract North Korea back to the negotiation table. So in that sense, I think we are in an inflection point in the decades-long history of negotiating in North Korea. And that's something that I think Ambassador Ditrani has a lot of experience and insights into.
Right. So let's bring in Ambassador Ditrani into the conversation. So with this in the backdrop, Ambassador, a U.S. political media outlet actually reported that the Trump administration is consulting with internal and external experts in preparation for the resumption of U.S. North Korea dialogue. It's also reported that Swedish ambassador to North Korea, who represents U.S. interests in Pyongyang, also visited Washington for consultations. Do you think we would be able to interpret this as an increased possibility for U.S. North Korea dialogue?
Well, thank you for the question and for the invitation to be here. Let me just say this. If anyone, we should be interacting with Russia and China to get a good sense as to where North Korea is, because for the past 4 years, we've not had any contact with North Korea. So, I mean, that's pretty stark, isn't it? No contact with North Korea. During that period of time, they've now become a close ally, a military ally, if you will, of the Russian Federation. So, yeah, I mean, if anything, it's the Trump administration, the first administration, that had these summits in Singapore and in Hanoi and then the DMZ meeting. Indeed, they know they're much more au courant than the past 4 years, where during the past 4 years, we've had no dialogue with North Korea. And we've seen where North Korea's gone with this. They built more nuclear weapons, more missile delivery systems, hypersonics, cruise missiles. They've now embraced the Russian Federation. And as you said in your opening, they have troops in Kursk, in Russia, fighting with the Russians. So that's pretty significant. I think we know the situation. I don't think we need to have much of a dialogue with anyone. We know what North Korea wants. They want sanctions to be lifted. They want to be recognized as a nuclear weapons state. There are no big secrets here.
Right. But even so, you know, President Trump actually really wants to, you know, resume dialogue with North Korea. So, yeah, we'll have to see how that goes. But through 100 days, you know, 100 days have passed since Trump administration took office, and it has yet to make any actually concrete policy decisions regarding North Korea or the security on the Korean Peninsula. So if this Trump administration raises these issues like strategic flexibility of USFK or demands of renegotiation of defense costs, how do you think South Korea should respond at this point?
So first of all, I think yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, please.
No,
have to go.
No, yeah, thank you. So I think the reason why there hasn't been a policy formulation regarding North Korea on the part of the Trump White House is due to two reasons. One is that the Trump administration and the first 100 days put a heavy emphasis on the domestic issues, such as immigration and also the economic matters, such as the universal tariff or reciprocal tariffs, whichever way you want to describe it. And the fact that I think President Trump believes that North Korea is very much his own policy domain, meaning he's not going to listen to his own policy advisors, because he believes the key to solving the North Korean challenge, if you allow me to put it that way, is going to be through his personal diplomacy with Kim Jong-un. So that's the reason why I think I keep emphasizing that he has great personal relations with Kim. But having said that, I think at the end of the day, setting aside the possibility of a personal diplomacy between Trump and Kim Jong-un, the United States has other strategies for this part of the world. And that's the reason why there's the mentioning of the defense burden sharing, also the strategic flexibility of the U.S. forces in stations in South Korea. So this is a different framework from, in a way, from North Korea. Sure, the USFK or U.S. forces in South Korea, their primary mission is to defend South Korea against the North. But at the same time, the regional situation and the landscape of challenges has become more complex, mainly due to the rise of China and the increasing confrontation between the major powers. So then what will be the role for treaty allies such as South Korea? So we are a treaty ally of the United States. We are in this together. So we are bound by this promise that we have to fight together against a common adversary. And that could be North Korea, and can be China, and there are many other challenges like this. So then we have to discuss with our close ally, South Korea with the United States, how to accommodate the new challenges that we see over the horizon. And I think we should be accommodating. I think, so sure, there's a risk that South Korea could get potentially involved in a conflict between the United States and China. But then I think the risk is bounded, meaning it's limited, and due to the fact that the way the South Korean military and we operate with the U.S. military is very different from the way the Japanese self-defense forces work with the United States military. So that really limits our role in a potential conflict between the United States and China. And second is that within that framework, I think there are a lot of things that we can do. And then most importantly, by showing that South Korea and the United States are essentially working together to face the common challenge of a potential conflict between China and the United States over Taiwan, it has a very important and significant deterrent effect. So essentially complicates the Chinese calculations, and that's going to act as a way to lower the chance of a real conflict arising in the Taiwan Strait. So in that sense, I think we should work right away, discuss with the United States about such flexibility and also there's other issues.
So become accommodating in America's demands. Now, Ambassador, did you have anything to add on?
Oh, no, I think that's a very excellent analysis.
All right. Now, let's shift some gears. In a striking move, actually, North Korea officially acknowledged for the very first time that it has actually deployed troops to assist Russia in the Ukraine war. And prior to this, Russia has also acknowledged North Korea's deployment. Ambassador, why are both sides now admitting the deployment after previously denying or avoiding the question?
Well, we've known this for some time, that North Korea had sent troops to Kursk and was aiding the Russian Federation. So there's no really big secret there. But I think what Russia and North Korea have done is they made it very obvious. They made it very overt. They said, look, we have a mutual defense treaty. In this case, the North Koreans are coming to our defense because of Kursk. And they fought bravely. Article 4, which implies also that Russia could be coming to the aid of North Korea. Indeed, hopefully will never happen, but if there's confrontation on the Korean Peninsula. So I think it's very clear that North Korea and Russia are making it clear to the world, but indeed to the United States and South Korea, that this is an alliance, a very close military alliance. And it's much different than in the past. So yeah, so why now? I think they feel it's very convenient. Russia feels they've been successful in Kursk. They feel they have the upper hand in the war of aggression with Ukraine. I think Putin is feeling pretty good about himself, despite the fact that they've lost so many troops. The casualties are immense. So I think the time came together And then they just said, both leaders agreed, let's make it clear to the world that we are united and we have a military mutual defense treaty that's going to be in place for some period of time.
Right, so to reaffirm their close, strong ties. Now, Ambassador, a few days ago, I spoke to Professor Min Jung-hoon from the Korean National Diplomatic Academy, and he said that this revealing of this timing could be because it's time for actually North Korean troops to return home, possibly from their injuries or other reasons. What's your stance on that?
No, I agree with that. And I think in part of your program indicated that the number of troops, NIS reported the number of casualties on the North Korean side are very significant. I think the number was over 4,000. So yes, I think it's, given the situation in Kursk, it's likely that the North Korean troops will return back to North Korea. But let me also indicate this. Right from the get-go, there's no doubt in my mind that Russia has been providing North Korea with the nuclear, missile, and satellite assistance. And this was in addition to significant monetary resources for the involvement, if you will, the introduction of North Korean troops into the Russian Federation and the war with Ukraine. So yeah, I think Kim Jong-un feels very good about this situation. I think he's been getting that assistance from Russia, and I think that will continue. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I really think, depending on how relations go between the United States, South Korea, and North Korea, I think that relationship will expand and further embolden Kim Jong-un.
Mm-hmm. Ambassador, you've mentioned that Russia might be already, supporting North Korea with military weapons. Do you think ICBMs would also be a part of that?
There's no doubt in my mind. Mm-hmm. No question. I thought we saw the Hwasong 19, a very successful launch of the Hwasong 19, an intercontinental ballistic missile, solid fuel, mobile. Yes, that could reach the whole of the United States, over 15,000 kilometers. Yes, I think MIRVing intercontinental ballistic missiles, the whole panoply, if you will, of capabilities, I think Russia will make available to North Korea. Now, where China stands on this, I don't think China is totally sanguine about all of the above, but I think that the tension between the United States and China is permitting Xi Jinping to be a little more tolerant of what North Korea is doing with Russia. Mm-hmm.
Now, that is very concerning, but let's also shift to Kim Jong-un's visit, actually, to Moscow. There had been, actually, speculation that Kim Jong-un would visit Russia on Victory Day celebration on May 9th, and reports actually suggest he's not likely to attend the event. Ambassador, if Chairman Kim does not participate in this Victory Day celebrations, what could be the reasons that we could speculate behind this?
Well, I would think one of the reasons would be that Kim Jong-un wants to still show he's open to an overture from the United States. He's open to an overture from President Donald Trump because he has this long-term relationship. Singapore, Hanoi, the DMZ. And I think he wants to show a bit of objectivity there, a bit of a balance in relations. So my personal view, I think not participating on the 9th of May in Victory Day celebrations, although it would be an opportune time for him to do it. But I think it's also a way of messaging the United States, indeed the United States, and saying, I'm prepared to engage with you. I'm prepared to hear what you have. And I think we all know what he's looking for, and that's, again, the lifting of sanctions and the recognition and the acceptance of them as a nuclear weapon state.
Mm-hmm. That would be their ultimate goal, of course. Now, so amid this strengthening North Korea-Russia ties, and Ambassador has mentioned the support, military support that Russia could be providing to North Korea. What kind of strategies do you think South Korea could adopt to respond to this security situation in this peninsula?
Well, this is a very concerning development. No need to add more to it, but I say more in concrete terms, it means that if there's a contingency in the Korean Peninsula, say like a military conflict between the two Koreas, until now, we also assume that North Korea will be the sole aggressor in such a scenario. Then the only preparation that the allied forces, or South Korea and the United States, would have to make was to fend off this aggression from the north, and that was it. But now it's the Russia's increasingly close security partnership with North Korea is raising the possibility that Russia might get involved in a conflict in the Korean Peninsula from the get-go, from the initial phase of a conflict. And this really complicates the response on the part of the allied forces, the combined forces of South Korea and the United States. So the better improvement and then also updating our contingency planning that in operational sense, it's a must, something that we should do right now. Second is that since North Korea is bringing in Russia into a potential, in case of potential conflict, we need to bring in other actors into the theater. So besides the United States, we need other partners, and we already have them in the form of NATO. So this is a very important point because we think of NATO as a security framework that's exclusive to Europe. But then now both Europe and Northeast Asia and in Korea and Japan, we are facing a common threat in the form of Russia. So we need definitely bring NATO into the equation. South Korea will be supported not just by the United States, but also the combined weight of the NATO member states or the major European powers who can, even though we are separated by a great distance, these European military powers can support South Korea with munition technology and logistical support, even economic aid. So in that sense, that's going to really affect the Russian calculations especially. And thirdly, I think this is a very important factor again. We can somehow convince China that this increasing partnership between Russia and North Korea is not just a threat to South Korea, but also it's detrimental to Chinese own strategic interests because China has been very much opposed to the idea of a NATO expansion or increasing partnership between Asian countries and NATO because they don't want to be surrounded. China doesn't want to be surrounded by allies of the United States all around, even from the east to the west. So now that this possibility is becoming even more realistic, not because of what the United States is doing, but because of what North Korea is doing, which is nominally a friend of China. I think China, which has a lot of leverage on North Korea, should exercise that leverage to ensure that North Korea stops bringing in outside powers in the Korean Peninsula. So I think these are the ways that we can do to ensure that North Korea and Russia, engage in this kind of actions that could lead to miscalculations.
Engaging with NATO and also, approaching China with
exactly.
the issue would be helpful. Now, we had a lot of discussions today, but we will have to wrap up our program for tonight at this point. Thank you so much for your insights and for your time, Dr. Go.
My pleasure.
And Ambassador Detrani, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Till then, stay informed and engaged.